Roll tape. Okay. Let's start the meeting, and this clock says 7:04, but I think it's actually not quite that late, but we'll just go by the wall clock. Call the meeting to order at 7:04. Okay, first thing, additions, deletions to the agenda.
One addition is number 21-139 POAM closed session.
Okey doke. Jeff, you have anything?
No.
Eric?
No.
Michael?
No, just a question. Well, why wasn't that on the agenda?
I don't know why it was not on the agenda.
Ruth?
I was never told to put it on, and then once it went to Brian, it was in, so I knew we had to add it.
Okay. All right, because I know we've been talking about it for a couple weeks at least.
Right, and it wasn't on last one, so, yeah.
Okay. Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving right along. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 18 Police Commission meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Any comments, discussion before we approve it?
I just say, Ruth, I think you did a great job on those minutes.
Thank you.
You got just the right amount of detail, and we kind of know what took place, and so thank you for that.
Very good. Any other comments?
No.
All in favor of approving?
Aye. Aye.
So approved. All right. Action items, let's go with the monthly report, Chief. Or Deputy Chief.
All right, to begin with, I'm going to just comment the Groseal Island Fest and fireworks was a success. No incidents of merit were reported. Lieutenant Pellin and Sergeant Carmack handled the operations of that event. They did a great job. The officers and the reserves that participated did an excellent job as well. Chief Toth with Woodhaven Police Department allowed us to have reserves from their department, and they participated and gave us support services for the fireworks display that took place. Next thing, the Groseal High School graduating class was assisted in a senior parade down Macomb Street by officers and the reserve staff. Their participation was appreciated by the efforts of the police officers that recognized them. There were a minimum amount of students that participated, but with those individuals that did, they were very grateful. On a personal note, Sergeant Carmack was nominated as a MAD Officer of the Year. He's going to be recognized with a luncheon in late April or June. Congratulations to Doug. His impact in curtailing OWI or operating while impaired intoxicated individuals is greatly appreciated. And we're very proud of him. Dive training took place at West River and Riverview Court by the dive team. They did search patterns, low visibility operations, and how to deal with the current. The temperature for the month of May, whenever they were out, was 60 degrees. I'll bring your attention to some of our monthly activity. So this is our call volume for the month of May. As you can see, the afternoon shift is the predominant shift that we handle most of our calls for service. A total of 970 calls were tallied through the police department through that month. I draw your attention to our traffic summary. One of the biggest highlights that everybody looks at is our deer. Just be aware that in the month of January, which is whenever we started our deer call, we kind of don't like taking that number into account. I'm comparing not last year because of the COVID situation that we had, so there was minimum traffic on the roadway, so there wasn't a lot of activity. So just in taking back to 2019, we went from 8 down to 6 right now. So the numbers are reasonably within the same ballpark that we historically have had.
Our total crashes seem to be up, though.
Yes.
I was looking at that. It just seems a lot of private crashes, on a year-over-year basis, and it's just, I don't know what it is, but it just seems like,
I would agree with that.
I think it's everyone blowing down Meridian. That's our main thoroughfare. It's probably got 3 times the traffic it's used to having.
This is our tally of our self-initiated officer activity. Once again, our OWIs are minimal right now at 1 for the month. Citations at 24. Verbal warnings are very important. That shows citizen contacts that the officers are making. So whenever they have an interaction with an individual on a traffic stop, it allows them to see if they're local, what business they may have here, if there's any indications that there's unscrupulous activity. So those citizen contacts, the officers making numerous traffic stops are making contact with multiple vehicles and then are able to identify anybody that may be out of place or may be up to some type of ill will or criminal activity. So as you can see, the other citations at 24 and then notice to appear, which are called NTAs, if we combine those two at 54 and the verbal warnings at 146, I appreciate the balance that the officers are doing because they're not taking enforcement action, but they are having as much contact, almost 3 times as much contact with the citizens. So I applaud them for their efforts on that. With the felony arrest, there was one. There was an assault on a police officer. That'll be in one of the reports that the lieutenant will bring up that took place on the DB report. Misdemeanor arrests at 6, and they took a total of 23 reports for the month of May. The indication of our call volume. So you knew that we were almost up to 1,000 calls for service as a whole, but this is a breakdown of those type of calls in certain selections. So animal calls at 57, rescues at 49, and as you can see, general assist calls and just general service is at 515. As you can see, our larcenies are at 29. I would caution the residents that I would appreciate that if they leave their doors open, try and lock your doors. Vehicles, a lot of times officers are responding to larceny calls and the vehicles are left open and not secure. So there's a complacency in Groseal being with the safest community, and albeit that's an incredible feat, at the same time, the lackadaisical attitude with some citizens on not securing their property puts them at risk for a larceny, which they're usually the easiest ones is just somebody popping open a car door and something being removed from their vehicles. So
I noticed that 26 of them were on May 3rd. Was that just
What's that?
Well, we had 29 for the month for larcenies. 26 of them were on May 3rd. Is that just a bookkeeping error?
I believe it may be. We're going to have to research into that. I was going by the final number.
No, I know.
So I appreciate that, you pointing that out. Irrespective of that, I know what you will see in some of the reports that we have. We have had some significant larcenies that have been on the increase, but we will check for that typographical error. The 911 calls, 134 referenced for the month of May, and then as Mr. Jarecki indicated, our 1050 crashes, which are motor vehicle crashes, are up. This is an indication of our overtime for the month of May. As you can see, our overtime is doubled from what it was last year. I looked at our scheduling. Right now we have, there was 27 days vacation that were taken by our current staff, and then there was some intermittent training days that were along with those vacation days. So between training and between significant vacation time that was taken, and being early spring, I know a lot of people are ready to exercise their privileges of vacation. So that
question, Brent, if I could.
Yes.
So if you look at the run rate on the budget overall, though, we're still pretty much in line with last year. Is that correct? I mean, in terms of overall expenses.
Yeah, I was going to get to it, but I'll jump to it right
Oh,
now.
I'm sorry. I don't mean for you to do that. I just, in other words, it doesn't seem to be a big concern right now based upon total expenses relative to on a year-over-year basis.
Yeah. No, right now I have the budget, which shows what our current budget is for overtime right now. And as you can see, I'm trying to read the line item with this. We're only at 1.69% of the budget that we use for allocated overtime that we have.
Through May.
Yes. And then with the understanding that the overtime that we have is kind of cyclical, and it goes by certain timeframes that we have increased activity for overtime. Usually, historically, the springtime, we're going to get more vacations that are going to be put in. Then there will be a lull for a certain period of time, and then it increases and decreases. Also, depending on how we schedule the training hours and how we're implementing that will also put an impact on our overtime rates. But for right now, we're well within our allocated budget that we would maintain to be under budget for this fiscal year. So I'm just going to jump over since I'm up here before I turn it over to the lieutenant. So getting into the ACO's report, she currently has 5 cats in the shelter available for adoption. There was an insulation job that was done in the front lobby, and it was completed with a noticeable difference. This will assist in the winter heating conditions, and then it'll also assist in the summer cooling conditions. So she's had a significant savings in noticing the temperature and having the AC not run as often within that confines. She's working on opening her hours for Thursday and Saturday, along with appointments continuing for the option of Monday through Friday during her regular shift. She had a presence at the local Island Fest called Pets with Purpose. It was ran by National Honor Society students. They manned the booth, and Briggs Damon and his mom, Stacy, organized a fundraiser. That fundraiser currently generated $2,500 with a goal of $5,000, so doing pretty good on that. This Saturday, she has another fundraiser called Raise the Wolf, and that will be at Hangar 1 at the airport. This can be between noon and 3. What this exercise is that Michael Bates Chevrolet is going to allow individuals to test drive vehicles that are from his dealership, and then $40 from each test drive will be donated to the shelter. So resident Sandra Zanka is doing the lion's share of the organizing for the event, and they'll have a hot dog stand, a silent auction, cornhole games, and door prizes. Julie's also been working with the what I would call the Tony Gray. He's our community development director, and he does ordinance enforcement. Julie's working in concert with him over the last couple of weeks, just so that they can get to know each other's job. This was covered during last month's meeting. Right now, they've had a total of 118 corrections collectively since they've been working together in the last few weeks. So Tony has been able to implement a system that's incorporated into the police department to where he has measured results that are documented. So we're able to, assist him in making presentations with what action he's taken so that he can bring it to his bosses, and then we can collectively know that they're working as a team and what's being done. So Julie's been ecstatic about working with Tony. They've worked very cohesively. There's been no complaints or any disagreements, and they're working together. Last thing we have is animal calls. Julie handled 57 animal complaint calls. 3 have been adopted out of the 5 that she had. And right now donations are $797.10 that she received in donations for last month, for a total of $6,003.90 in total donations for this year. Getting back to the budget, once again, our overtime is the biggest one that we keep a cautionary tale on. Our overtime is within our confines that we believe will be within budget at the end of the year. Our highest cost lately has been on equipment maintenance. So if you look at maintenance special equipment, you'll see we've expended about half of that amount. What this has been for is our older cars are starting to see some significant wear and tear, and they're coming up to their usable life. We have 3 to 4 new cars that are going to be online total within the next month and a half, and so we won't be incurring any more additional, maintenance costs that should be significant whenever we get those new cars online. Anybody have any questions on the budget?
No, but I do have a question about the fleet of cars. Would it be asking too much if we somehow just had the overall average miles of the fleet? So I know you add up the miles that you guys drive, and then you have all the odometers, but it'd be nice to know, to me, again, what the average miles of the fleet are this year in May, compared to last year in May. This is a simple calculation. I know you got the numbers there. That way I don't have to bug Ruth to give me the May report. It's just, to me, it'd be more meaningful to know that, okay, we're, 10% higher than last year, or, that's just, we're starting, we really have a problem here or something, or 20% or whatever. But yeah, if you guys could do that, it'd be great.
Okay, I got some notes here, and we'll get that presentation for you. So that completes the monthly report on my end. I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Pellin, let him go over the DB report and the reserve report.
Good evening. First thing I'll cover is the training report for the month of May. Our officers completed more than 230 hours of training in the month of May. To highlight, Officer Benson, who's behind me, completed basic SWAT school. He is now a full-fledged SWAT member. It's a rigorous 60-hour week that he spends up north going through a variety of different exercises. All of the details in his training is in your packet, but proud that he represents our police department very well on the SWAT team. I hear good things about his work. Also to note is Officer Delpias completed bicycle officer training. It's a 4-day, 32-hour week where she learns tactics on a bicycle. Officer Counts, who also sits behind me, received that training a couple years ago. So now we have 2 officers that are able to go out on bike patrol. It's a good community policing for us, and we can use them if we need to go into the woods or something else, if manpower permits. You'll see in your monthly report that our mutual aid officers all completed their monthly training, SWAT, hostage negotiations, and our dive team. Officer Brozek sits behind me. He is the commander of our dive team. Officer Benson is scheduled next week for us to attend the ALICE training with the school district, hosted by us in conjunction with the schools. He's going to learn how to educate and train staff members of the school and our police department on how to respond in a critical incident if we're inside a location, which is a good thing for us. It's a good partnership we have with the schools. I will note that during the course of May, we had 1 mutual aid activation. Officer Brozek was sent to the shoreline near BASF property about 5:30 in the morning to conduct a search and rescue exercise for a 41-year-old who fell off his dinghy. Well, he jumped off his dinghy trying to get to shore, climb a fence or what have you. Within 45 minutes, they were able to recover the man. Unfortunately, he had passed. So that was our only activation during the month of May. The DB report, the Detective Bureau report, you have in front of you 4 larcenies. I understand that the note that Mr. Anderson corrected that said 26 on the one day. We did not have a rash of car larcenies or anything else. There was 4 larcenies in total for the month of May that we had to investigate or come to some resolution. Two cases to note that the Detective Bureau handled. The first one, the Deputy Chief reviewed last month with you, was the assault and battery on a police officer where one of our officers had to deploy his taser at an incident that occurred at Water's Edge. The Detective Bureau was able to obtain felony warrants for the individual. The other one, the Deputy Chief also covered last month, was two of our officers on a traffic stop. One was hit from behind by the intoxicated driver. You'll note that his blood alcohol level was a .38. So extremely intoxicated on his way home from work when he struck one of our officers that sent him to the hospital. Fortunately, the officer is okay, has some minor injuries, but he could not finish his shift. Any questions on the training report? Mutual aid? Okay. Deputy Chief talked about a couple things that were related to community policing. Island Fest was a success. We did not have any major incidents. We did have your typical lost child, or I should say parents that were lost. 9-year-olds could not find their parents. They were at the beer tent. We assisted there. We had your typical lost and found property that we helped people recover. So everything was pretty well handled by our reserves. He mentioned that Chief Toth from Woodhaven did allow us to borrow some of his reserves. They sent us 6 officers and 3 patrol cars, helped us assisting with traffic, officer presence, and crowd control. I will note that after the fireworks concluded, we did have a medical emergency happen in the middle of a rush hour, and our officers did a phenomenal job in controlling traffic and getting the ambulance across the bridge, even though traffic was backed up well up to Church Road. So they did it. The reserves and our officers did a very good job. Sergeant Carmack, as the Deputy Chief mentioned, is our MAD Officer of the Year. He was nominated in April, and that award just came through last week. He will be recognized in Mount Pleasant. In 2020, Officer Carmack led our department in the number of drunk driving arrests. He also took over the responsibility of conducting alcohol compliance checks with our retailers, and he's a good leader of example for the younger guys on his shift. So that's why he was nominated for that. And keeping on tone with that, letters have been sent to our alcohol retailers, whether they're on-premise or off-premise, that we're going to start our compliance checks again, and our Officer Carmack is going to start that this month. So in the next couple of weeks, he's going to send his decoys, his cadets, into our stores, into our bars, seeing if they can't successfully purchase alcohol and or tobacco. We talked a little bit about the overtime budget. Next month, we're scheduled to have, in the month of June, in our month that we're currently in, we're scheduled to have 14 overtime shifts. 14 overtime shifts for patrol and dispatch. 13 shifts where an officer is supposed to be on the road. He's going to be dedicated to dispatch to help circumvent some of that overtime costs. But you're losing production on the road. You're losing 33% of your personnel that can respond to a medical emergency or something else by him sitting on a desk, him or her. We also are losing our records clerk for 16 days in the month of June. 16 days that she's not going to be able to file FOIAs, help the DB with their subpoenas and so forth. In the month of July, we have 17 overtime shifts, so it increases. And then 15 shifts, our patrol are assigned to dispatch. And then 15 more days that our records clerk is going to be coming out of her bureau to sit at the desk to help cover overtime. So even though we are preventing overtime costs or limiting the costs, we're limiting our ability to serve the public. So I was glad last night that we were able to get approval to establish an eligibility list for patrol officer. That will help us. We just need to get a replacement in dispatch, which will hopefully come at the July board meeting. Anybody have any questions for me? Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, quick question. Is Michelle retiring soon too?
The rumor is that she is expected to retire on or about October 1st.
So we're going to have to start hunting for a new dispatcher again.
And it would be a great idea to start now.
Yep.
Well, why don't we get those both on the list for July? Or, well, actually get
Well, I think
to approve
before we
the hire that you guys shared with us that we missed out on, and maybe to establish another list for a dispatcher.
And I think it would be prudent for us to sit down and discuss what position we want to replace.
Okay.
You know, we have,
All right.
we have capable dispatchers that could fit in the Records Bureau, but it may be something we look at as hiring somebody specifically for the Records Bureau. And it's been discussed between Deputy Chief and I a little bit, but we have alternatives.
Yeah, well, I think.
We have capable dispatchers that could fit in the Records Bureau. I want to make sure that that's clear, but
Well, I'll come down and talk to you too, and maybe we'll set something up for a special meeting to,
yeah,
you know.
there's pros and cons to both
Oh,
decisions.
understood, we went through
Yeah.
it before.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to both.
And we probably ought to throw the chief secretary in there too, because that's coming up.
It could be sooner than you think.
All right,
Yeah.
anyone else have any questions on the monthly report?
Do you mind, Mr. Anderson, then if I skip into the reserve report?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
No,
let's
it's
find
okay.
out before we,
The monthly report's done. Before I sit down.
well, don't sit down yet, just, anyone have any questions on monthly report?
Not really a question, but again, just I think we should be as proactive as possible. You know, getting the lists approved as far as in advance as we can. And if you guys need to have internal discussions amongst yourselves and Paul, whoever, you know, we don't want to be rushed on those things. And
I agree.
especially when there's no reason to be.
Right.
Right.
If the Detective Bureau gets busy, it prolongs the ability for them to do background investigations. The hiring process in itself is lengthy, but we can definitely be ahead of the game. Having a list established is very prudent.
Okay.
All right, why don't you move into, anyone else have anything? I assume Mike was it. All right,
So Sergeant Carmack provided us with an overview of what the reserves accomplished in the month of May. They put in 51 hours of volunteer time to help service the Township of Grosse Ile, and our cadets explorers put in an additional 6 hours. We have 2 active explorers, and both of them worked Island Fest. And it's a good learning experience for them, but they also provide a service for us, whether we have to have another person in uniform to have a presence, or they help us move barricades or something else. So not only do they learn, but they do provide a service for us. Sergeant Carmack conducted an interview for a reserve position. They have not made a determination whether or not the person will progress through to the next step, but he's actively seeking. So he's working on a video to publicize what the reserves do and what they can do for the township, and then he's trying to put some information together for our Facebook page. It seems that we drew a lot of applicants for dispatch through Facebook. So that's all he has for that.
Not on the report, but the reserves in general. I know their meeting is
Today.
now.
Yeah, the meeting's currently taking place.
Where are we at with moving that so that he can be present for these meetings? Do we know?
It's my understanding that next week their meetings are going to be, or I'm sorry, next month their meetings will be moved to a Sunday. So, and I was remiss.
Where are those meetings held?
At the police department.
Okay.
The reserves have their own office, but they use our training room. They try to not only meet to discuss or debrief what they've accomplished or what their goals are, what their schedules are going to be, they train. So earlier this month, the entire department got trained in Narcan. We're making arrangements for every one of our reserve officers to get that training as well. They're open to the idea, so he's supposed to provide me with some possible training dates. So, and then I failed to mention in the training report that all of our officers qualified at the Trenton range with their firearms, shotgun, rifle, pistol. So we had a lot of training in the month of May.
What is the ammunition situation like now? Has it gotten better?
That's a great question, but we're limiting the number of rounds that we shoot at the range to try to preserve some. That might be better answered by the deputy chief.
Right.
I'm not involved in that.
We ended up purchasing tens of thousands of dollars worth of ammunition prior to
Yeah.
the shortage. So we're in a good place. The current situation is that the deer call ammunition is unobtainable right now. We have a small reserve, which we're holding on to for the September operation. The regular duty ammunition and reloads is usually unobtainable. If it is, it's at a premium. It would be 3 times the cost of what we paid whenever I purchased it, being proactive.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen.
Thank you. All right, Mike, we're to the liaison report.
Yes. So we were here kind of late last night. It's about 11:15. Had a lot to talk about. We spent a lot of time discussing the hire of Dale Reham's replacement, Derek Thiel. You know, lots of accolades. They're combining the manager's job with the DPS director's job. A lot of talk about the process, so on and so forth. But it was approved, and you know, we're looking forward to working with Derek. I think he's going to be great, and hopefully they can backfill in a way which is beneficial to the township, and they can get a good employee that can be groomed, and so on and so forth. So there was a lot of discussion on that. We also had a lot of discussion about hiring our own bridge engineer, our expert, so that hopefully we can reduce the number of surprises that we've experienced with the bridge kind of failing before it's supposed to fail, based upon service life estimates from Wayne County, and really better position ourselves so that if in fact funds are available, you know, we have a good number on the estimated service life, our own number on the estimated service life of the bridge. As you know, Brennan, the company, the main contractor, is fixing 6 of the 11 piers. You know, the estimated service life that we're being advised by Wayne County is 20 to 30 years. Seems a little bit of a stretch. We want to get our own engineer to better position us to pursue what's in the best interest of the township. And by having that expert, we can say, hey, look at, you know, we don't think that's the case, and kind of hopefully save ourselves a lot of hardship and cost. And from a public safety perspective, everybody knows how difficult it is. So first time we presented this back in January, they said no. It was 3 votes yes, 4 no. Last night we had 7 votes yes. So that's a really good thing. We also had a lot of discussion too, and about, you know, what we can do as a community to preserve the bridge better once it's repaired. And I know we talked about that here at our last meeting, and we've talked about it at meetings before. And there's a lot of interest in that. I brought up again, you know, the speeding of heavy trucks. I mean, we got to maybe do more enforcement there, because if we learned anything from Mr. Smoke, it's, less speed, less weight preserves the bridge. And so we got to work. There was talk about possibly, setting up a new speed limit and maybe weight restriction. So there's lots of discussion on this. I think we kind of want to be more proactive with the engineer, but we also want to be more proactive doing the things that we feel that we can do, especially this department, I think, can have a major impact. So pretty much, everybody's water and sewage bill is going to go up. So there's a lot of discussion about that too. So, but obviously it is a straight pass through, and that's what we're told, with no cost increment for the township. So a straight pass through this time around. So I thought it was a pretty good meeting, and but those were the main action items that were discussed. So, and of course, I had mentioned some of the things that you guys have already talked about as far as what you're doing here and accomplishing. So that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
No. Okay.
Okay, are there any other department updates that we need to discuss? We're down to public comment. So, oh yeah. I guess we need a motion to approve the monthly report.
Motion.
Report. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I see Joey's here, the gentleman here. I don't know. Did you have any comments? He's with you. That's good. I just assumed, didn't want to. Joey, what you got?
Nothing, I'm just here to see the show.
Okay.
All right.
Then we have no public comment unless any of the other people out there know. So at this point, I need a motion to move into closed session.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll take a 5-minute break.